You'll see I've done Santa's beard, and I've put his hat on. I've glued it in place there. What I found so much fun to do is I was actually just playing with that same cording, I suppose one would call it, that I took apart. And when I really fluffed it out like this, got those lovely little curls, and I just literally put a dollop of glue on his chin, right there, and I stuck it down. I'm going to keep this little bit because we'll use it somewhere as hair or something for one of the other projects. Now we're going to do our treetop angel. As I said earlier, for those that are just tuning in with us now, basically what our tutorial showed us yesterday was the ball, which is about 1 centimeter round, the little nose and the ears, and then of course to paint. I got quite carried away and I ended up with a bunny, which I think is just so cute, and I ended up with a little pig that I'm still busy painting, and a little grey piggy, which I think is going to be quite cute. And the fun about these is you actually have so many options of what you can do. I've got these in different stages at the moment of dress, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those just out of the way here so that I can work, and I'm going to show you. Now the lace that came with your kit was my favourite lace that I like to cut up into lots of bits and pieces, that lace. I'm going to just take 3 little scallops off because I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to create my petticoat and my dress in one motion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this lovely edge here, which we're going to use just now as part of her neck ruffle collar. So I just want to trim that off quickly. I think the first thing we do is we tend to make our dresses a little bit too long. I think we think they're christening dresses, and the first couple I did, the dresses were very long, and I found they didn't sit quite as nicely on the tree as I wanted them to. So I suppose the perfect sort of length for a dress would be about 1 inch. Don't cut your toothpick off yet, because it just makes it so much easier to be able to work with her while she's on her toothpick. When we're finished, we in fact will cut the toothpick right down and get left with just the baby that's going to go on the edge of the Christmas tree. Great, I've cut that off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew up my lace from that edge to that edge. Okay, so make my little knot. Okay, starting with our normal little double stitch that I like to start with. Double stitch. You can stitch this whichever way you're comfortable. There's no right or wrong way. What I've learned in miniatures is as long as we get the effect in the end, it doesn't matter how we actually get to that effect. I tend to do little running stitches with everything. That comes from quilting, and then tomorrow I'll be stitching something and I'll be working with a whip stitch. That comes from heirloom sewing. All these wonderful crafts that we learn before we get to miniatures do serve us well when we eventually get here. I just want to go up quickly, cut that little piece straight. I see my scissors weren't quite as straight as I'd like it to be, and I'm going to just go around in and out to that edge there. Right, once we pull our threads through, don't pull it too tight. Again, finish with a double stitch so that our stitching doesn't come undone. I just do a double back stitch and trim it off. Now we're going to turn our dress round. Now what I've done here basically is I've created my dress and my petticoat in one motion. Remember, she's little, she's going on the top of the tree, so we just really want to have that part, and basically that's the part that's going to become her little dress. If you want to, you can put a lace edge on that bottom lace. You'll see on some of them I in fact did double layers. This was a crochet dress that I'd done, where I'd done the skirt in white plain stitching and then crocheted an edge and gave her an overskirt. I tend to sit and play a lot, so I have lots of these little dresses lying around. So a couple of my treetop angels this year were lucky because they got these lovely little crochet dresses. This angel, you'll see I have used a fabric, but I've crocheted my lace edge on the bottom, and I've left enough space for a ribbon to go through. So I'll thread a bit of ribbon through just now. This one, I just had this beautiful piece of antique lace, but it was really only 2 little scallops. So I used a beautiful yellow, bright yellow silk to give us the skirt, and I've just trimmed her bits and pieces with that. I need to actually just get this little scallop out. I see it's, there we go. I'm maybe just dampen it and get it to stay out just now. It obviously was when I was working with it, I may have pushed it in slightly. Anyway, back to our angel. So, right, we've got her like that. Our sew up seam will obviously go to the back, and we're going to use a double thread. That is just so that if one thread breaks, we have a second one. Anytime you're gathering, that just makes it so much easier. I'm going to start opposite where my back seam is, which is round about the middle of the front scallop. I'm going to just run a very fine, very, very fine little running stitch right round, because I'm going to pull this up shortly on my little head on the stick, want of a better way of putting it. Let's just get this through here. There we go. And there we go. Now the lovely thing with working with lace is we can nip it here and there if we need to. I'll just put her down. Oops, there we go. Now I'm going to just pull up my dress, tie my double knot, just so that I know it's there. I'm going to use glue shortly to in fact just hold it in place for me, and just snip those 2 off. Now I can go back and work out, there's my front. Okay, perfect. Now if you use super glue, remember it's going to make your fabric hard. I tend to just dollop it with my Arlene's tacky glue, and I can do that. But now we must also remember her arms have got to come in here somewhere. So in that motion there, just slip her arms on like that. See, there we go. And leave her to dry. Now I am going to leave her to dry, because if I try and do the lace over that now, I'm going to move her arms and I don't want them to fall off. So while we're waiting for that little girl to dry, I'm in fact going to carry on finishing up this little angel of ours. I want to find my silk ribbon that is lying in a box here right next to me, and I think a nice pale pink would be lovely for her, or maybe even a nice lilac. Look how beautiful that lilac. You don't have to use traditional Christmas colors. You can use any color you like. I'm going to go with, actually a silver would have been really nice, because I've got that strip of silver in her dress and it'll pick up. Now one of the Christmas angels that I made that you see on the photographs that I sent through yesterday, I had crocheted the whole edge of her dress in gold, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was a Christmas gift for a friend, a very dear friend, so I had taken that extra effort and just made it a little bit more special. So you really can do anything you like with these. They're just so many ideas of what you can do. I'm just going to find my silver trim. There we can use that silver. Or we could in fact use a silver and a gold ribbon that I see I have got a piece of here. And I think actually I'm going to use that. Just a little bit different. I know roughly how much I need. I'm just going to snip some off there. And we can then feed it through. I find the easiest way to feed it through is in fact threading a needle. Now I've got to find what I did with my bed needle last night when I was sewing up a blanket. Dig in my box here and see if I can find what I've done with it. Aha, there it is. Okay, let's thread our trim. This is a nice stiff trim, so it should actually thread through quite nicely. If you're going to do a bow, I would do the bow afterwards. I always start at the back and then just thread it through my eyelets that I've made for the lace of the ribbon. Let's see. And remember, again, nothing's permanent until you make it permanent. Look how already it just starts bringing it to life. Now, what I do on this edge is I will in fact put that through to the back just now and double stitch it in place. See how that starts standing out? Because the ribbon is a little bit stiff, it's going to give us a beautiful edge standing stiff like that. Just get it through the stitches. And obviously we don't want it to twist. And look at that effect already, how that little bit of silver is picking up these beautiful little silver streaks. Now, prior to doing that, you would have seen that the cotton I used to crochet with here and this were a slightly different shade. If you find you've got a problem with your shading between your cottons and your fabrics, you could always just dunk it in tea or a bit of coffee, which will give you a nice even tone and even it out. I'm a little bit too impatient to do those sort of things, and I don't do that much antiquing. But I do know that the tea works very well. We have a tea called Rooibos, which is red bush tea, and it gives everything a red tinge, which is just so stunning. And I think in one of my projects I'll just for the fun of it do it as well, so that you can see how different it makes it look. Okay, there's our straight in the front here. And remember, don't pull your ribbon too tight. And just make sure that it's flat all the way around. I will, when I have a chance, sit down and write down the pattern that I in fact use for these little dresses. Unfortunately, it's a pattern that's in my head, and every time I start writing it down, I sort of think, how am I going to communicate what I'm doing on paper? I find it easier to do it in CAM, where I can actually tell you what I'm doing rather than try and write what I'm doing, which is why my tutorials, when they're written, are slightly either too in-depth or not in-depth enough. I think one of the problems we have as teachers is that we just assume everybody understands what we're talking about. I remember when I was lecturing, I used to always think that about my students, and I used to think, well, they know what I'm talking about, it doesn't matter. And one of my students one day turned around and said to me, ma'am, do you ever realize that we don't really understand what you're talking about? And I said, no, what do you mean? She said, well, you think we know what you're talking about, but we haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So ever since that time, I've sort of tried and think things through. How would I describe opening a matchbox to somebody they couldn't see? So I try very much to do things that you can describe it sufficiently in words and explain. I'm sorry the table and the camera are moving. That's just Penny at my feet. Those of you that saw yesterday's cam will understand. Penny is my Cocker Spaniel, who doesn't quite get the idea that I'm busy working. She wants my attention, so she's going to start moving everything until she gets me to stop doing what I'm doing. Penny is a rescue child. She was taken away from a family. She arrived with James a couple of months ago, and those that sort of follow us on Facebook will know their story, but they have settled in so well. They've just become such a lovely part of our family. Right, I'll put that last piece through there now. Let's just bring it in, and it is through. Now you can just, with a bit of glue, a dot of glue on that little piece. In view of the fact that I can't find what I've done with my glue right now, it's here somewhere, I'm going to just leave that for now because I know I've got to edge it off. But see what a difference that's already making to her little dress. Once we put that dress on a tree now, it's going to be gorgeous. Now, in your packet, you will have found a tiny little bead like that for the halo. With the bunny, of course, I couldn't do the halo, so I just made her a ribbon. I'm going to fetch their halos now and put their halos on. This little one is almost dry enough that we can do her collar and her halo.